It's January, and this time of year in the Commonwealth of Virginia, we start our annual General Assembly session. On this Wednesday, January 14th, we will begin our General Assembly session here in the Commonwealth of Virginia with a new governor, lieutenant governor, attorney general, and a brand new slate of House of Delegates. What are the issues? What are the issues affecting you and your community? And what are those things that are going to happen that will impact our Commonwealth as a whole? It's Stay the Water. I'm your host, Eric LaVille, and you're joining us for our annual General Assembly show. Once again, we want to thank you for joining us as you always do on this Sunday morning as we broadcast from the campus of the Norfolk State University, home of the Spartan Nation, from none other than WNSB Hot 91, the soul of VA. We'd like to once again wish all of you a happy new year as you begin this year of promise, this new year of 2026, and we hope that it will be all that you have prayed and hoped it to be. So you all know, for those that have been listening to us since 2020, you know that we love to do this show where we delve into the General Assembly session. It's a lot going on here in the Commonwealth of Virginia because, as I always say, as Virginia goes, so goes the rest of the country. And there are a lot of issues that we'll be dealing with here in our legislature and that will impact not just the Commonwealth or you and your city or your community or even your home, but it will impact the entire country. So with that, we're going to delve right into what we're going to start looking at. And then not only that, but who are the players? What does the governor's office look like? And how would this impact you? So I want to start with our governor's inauguration. So, of course, on this Wednesday, on the 14th, the Speaker of the House and the Senate Pro Tem person presiding over the Senate, which is, of course, the Lieutenant Governor, will open up the General Assembly session. With that, we'll have an opportunity to do all the things the first day at the General Assembly. Of course, early morning, there are things happening, and then in the afternoon and so forth. But then, you know, what's happening also in this particular session is the inauguration of our new governor. That's right. One governor's leaving out and another is coming in, but not just the governor, but an entire slate of administrators as well. So we know that here in the Commonwealth of Virginia, we made history last year where the citizens of the Commonwealth, by a landslide, a mandate, elected the first woman to represent the Commonwealth of Virginia. Now, by default, it was going to be a woman, either party, whether it be Democratic or Republican Party. This time, it was the Democratic Party that elected its slate of candidates from the governor's office to lieutenant governor to attorney general. And of course, we know that Governor-elect Spanberger, and by this time next week, she will be Governor Spanberger, will take office when she takes the oath of office on Saturday, on the 17th. Now, with that, we also will be inaugurating the first Black African-American Attorney General in the history of the Commonwealth, and that is Attorney General-elect Jay Jones. Of course, we know his father and his family as a legacy in the legal community here as judges and also as practicing attorneys, and he's carrying on that legacy as well. And of course, we also will have the first Muslim that will be inaugurated as the lieutenant governor of our Commonwealth. Former Senator Hashmi, who will talk about that seat that was vacated and that is now filled in just a moment when we look at the House and also the Senate and its makeup. You know, and with that, the governor comes in with her administration. And there have been some appointments to the administration as well. As a matter of fact, when we take a look at the appointment, you know, she has stacked her office, her cabinet, with some outstanding individuals that have a lot of experience and will help to lead the Commonwealth in the future. And with that, I'll start with, according to WTOP News and other news outlets, the Secretary for Health and Human Resources, Secretary, is Marvin Figueroa. Marvin Figueroa, he's had a lot of experience in government, especially in this area. This particular area, health and human resources, will oversee 12 state agencies. Now, he's currently a vice president at BGR Group in working on state and federal health policy, but he was also once a health policy advisor to our current U.S. Senator, Mark Warner. And he also served as a senior official at the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. So he's coming back to Virginia and coming back to add his experience to this administration. Katie Frazier is our new Secretary of Agriculture and Forestry. Since 2018, Katie Frazier has worked as the Chief Brand Officer for Farm Credit of the Virginias, and she also helped to provide financing, equipment, livestock, land purchases, farm and country home loans, and in that role, she led marketing, education, and legislation advocacy efforts as well. With that, she's also was previously the executive director for the Virginia Agribusiness Council, which is a nonprofit group in Richmond. The new Secretary for Public Safety and Homeland Security is none other than Stanley Meter, who has worked in law enforcement for almost 3 decades as a special agent with Virginia's Alcohol Beverage Control Authority in 1997. Also, he was part of the response to 9/11 with the attack on the Pentagon, and earned a Virginia Declaration of Valor for his work on that day. Nick Donahue is our new Secretary of Transportation. Nick founded Transportation and Infrastructure Strategies, LLC. He was also a former House delegate member, now a professor practicing that's David. Actually, when he was part of that particular group, he was involved in Transforming Rail in Virginia initiative, helping to increase Amtrak, Virginia Railway Express. Now, Donahue, according to David Ramadan, who's a former House and Delegates and member now of professor at George Mason, he made the statement about Donahue. He said he's probably the foremost person who knows everything there is to know about transportation in Virginia. Now, this is an appointment that we're very excited about, and we are really excited and elated because, once again, we have an NSU alum who will be serving as a secretary in a gubernatorial administration. And that's none other than now Delegate Candy Munden King, who will become the new Secretary of the Commonwealth. She is a Norfolk State University alum. She's also one of several state lawmakers Spanberger appointed to her cabinet. And with that, she's currently served the 23rd District in the House of Delegates since 2021, representing parts of Prince William and Stafford counties. And before that, she worked as a public policy and philanthropy organization such as Gates Foundation and also CARE. But she's from right here, born and raised in Portsmouth, and currently lives with her family in Dumfries. So we're excited and also congratulate our outstanding alum, Candy Munden King, and also good friend of mine. We applaud you and, of course, wish you all the best in that position. And, of course, Army Major General Timothy Williams. He worked under 3 Virginia governors as Adjutant General for the state for 9 years. In 2023, he retired after 38 years in the Army. But he will come in and serve in the governor's administration as well. In addition to that, another legislator, Mark Sickles, is the new Secretary of Finance. Now, he's represented parts of Fairfax County in Virginia's House for over 2 decades, and he currently is the chair of the Joint Legislative Audit and Review Commission. We're excited to have him in that position as well. Tracy DeSajar, who is the Secretary of Administration, she will be coming into this administration with a lot of experience. Tracy has worked as Deputy Secretary for the Commonwealth under former governors Ralph Northam and Terry McCullough. She helped with clemency, restoring civil and voting rights, over 300,000 Virginians. Now, currently, she's worked as the Deputy Chief Administrative Officer for Human Services in the city of Richmond. And again, once again, she brings a tremendous amount of experience to this role. Now, another appointment that we're excited about here in Hampton Roads is the new Secretary of Education, and that's Jeffrey Smith. Smith, he has over a decade of experience as superintendent, leading Hampton City Schools for 8 years and the town of West Point Schools for 7. But with that, his career, he's got over 30 years in public school education. In his tenure in Hampton City Schools, he improved graduation rates and reported declines in dropout rates as well. He currently serves as the executive director and CEO of Virginia Aerospace Science Center. One thing I will say, I know I call him Superintendent Smith, but now Secretary Smith, outstanding pick. And I've seen the City of Hampton School District turnaround under his leadership. Outstanding job, and it's an outstanding pick for us here in the Commonwealth. And then Sesha Joy Moon is the new Chief Diversity Officer. Moon has worked as the Chief Diversity Officer for the U.S. House of Representatives during the 117th and also 118th Congress, heading the House of Diversity and Inclusion. And also another secretary that we have is for Labor, Jessica Luman, who is a former President Joe Biden appointed to serve as administrator to U.S. Department of Labor's Wage and Hour Division and led the agency from 21 to 25. And then Mark McGuire is the counsel to the governor. He has worked in private practice and academia and is principal deputy solicitor and also executive division counsel under former Attorney General Mark Herring. And then with that, we also have finally David Bolivar, another legislator. So that's three current sitting legislators that had to leave. He will serve as the current Secretary of Natural and Historic Resources. Again, pulling on the experience of the current House of Delegates, stacking the office, stacking her administration with individuals that will bring immediate value to her office is one thing that Governor-elect Spanberger has done with her office. Now, with that being the case, keep in mind, not only is that the governor's office and every person that has her agencies, but we come into this 2026 session with the Democrats having a supermajority. That's right, with the supermajority voted in by the voters of the of the Commonwealth of Virginia. They say, you know what, we're going to change. We want policies that are created that the Democratic Party are going to champion. And that's exactly what happened. Now, keep in mind, this last election, the Senate did not did not run for re-election, which they do not. They only run every 4 years. However, so therefore, the Senate stays in Democratic control, especially with the lieutenant governor being elected who presides over the Senate with another additional vote as opposed to the last administration. And in addition to that, because Lieutenant Governor-elect Hashmi has moved up, the Senate seat was left, and delegate at the time, Mike Jones, former delegate now, ran for the Senate seat and captured the Senate seat in a landslide election. So once again, congratulations, now Senator Mike Jones, for your election to Senate District 15. And as a Capitol brother, I say, yo, for your achievement. Also, Charlie Schmidt wins Jones's vacated House seat in District 77. Once again, both Democratic seats remain Democratic. And this is a huge, huge momentum driver for the party. As a matter of fact, State Senator Lamont Bagby, who is the current head of the Democratic Party here in the Commonwealth of Virginia, he said that he's the chair of the Democratic Party of Virginia, said Tuesday's results underscored Democrats' momentum heading into 2026 session. He also said, I'm proud to congratulate Senator-elect Mike Jones and Delegate-elect Charlie Schmidt on their decisive victories, calling the races two more crucial wins for the Democratic Party of Virginia. He also said Jones has already demonstrated leadership with results, integrity, and a deep commitment to the people he serves, citing his work both in elected office and also through his faith. And this is, of course, reported out by the Virginia Mercury. In addition to that, we also find that when we look at these elections, Senate President Pro Tem Louise Lucas, who is also NSU alum, in December called Tuesday's special election to fill that vacancy, compressing campaign timelines for the seat vacated by Senator Hashmi. So, again, we've got this opportunity as Democrats, and they capture that opportunity. And with that, these seats remain squarely in Democratic control. So that's what we're coming into the General Assembly with this session, this legislative session in 2026. But what are the issues at stake and what is going to happen this session itself? It's Stay the Water. I'm your host, Eric Claville, and you're joining us for the beginning of our 2026 legislative session as we delve into what takes place every week. What are those issues that are going to impact you, your city, your community, and your Commonwealth? But even more important, or just as important in this day and time, what are the actions that are going to impact the entire United States and the world? Because as I always say, and has been proven in results, as Virginia goes, so goes the rest of the country. So before we delve into the issues, I want to give a quick overview of what we're going to look at in this session. According to the Virginia Independent, when we take a look at the legislative session, under Virginia Constitution, the General Assembly convenes on the second Wednesday every January, which we'll do down on the 14th. And during the session, the even number of years, we have what's called a 60-day session where lawmakers must adopt a 2-year budget. In the odd years, they don't, so therefore it's a shorter session. So in the even years, this session is 60 days, so we're slated to end this March 14th. And next year, it'll be a 45-day session, which would be 15 days shorter. The idea is, hey, if you're not passing a budget, you don't need that much time. Now, keep in mind, there are special sessions that are held or extended sessions because of this. And with that, every single day, we're going to find where both sides, the House and the Senate, are meeting and taking place in the Capitol and other meetings, hearings, and committees in order to pass legislation. Now, with that being the case, let's talk about the budget. Well, before we do that, we want to talk about some of the packages that they've adopted. So Spanberger and the Democratic leaders have said what their priorities are. And I'll tell you what, we'll come back to that because I want to delve into that last after we give the overview of what's going to take place. When we look at the budget, the outgoing governor, Glenn Youngkin, he submitted his last budget proposal seeking to spend $100 billion annually for fiscal year 2027-2028 on state operations. So during that, I was actually there when he read the budget out, and it's also broadcast. They'll use that request as their state point and consider budget and amendment proposals when the House and Senate agree on their final version. Now, who will be inaugurated on the 17th? Governor-elect Spanberger. Her signature veto of proposed changes will be the deciding factor on this budget. So even though the outgoing governor presented it, the House and Senate are going to deal with it, but it's up to the governor to actually sign it, veto it, or recommend some proposed changes. Now, of course, he can go back to the General Assembly. They could call for a session to change it up, but they have to have a larger 2/3 vote majority in order to do that. They try to avoid that by having a conference, conferees to come up and discuss this, so things are a little bit smoother. But with that, we have a bunch of there are things that do take place, not just bills and budgets, but also constitutional amendments. After giving their approval to 4 constitutional amendments last session in 2025, Democratic leaders have to expect both chambers again to approve those proposals in the early days of 2026. And then from there, it goes to the voters. Now, the governor's actions, the governor, whomever the governor is, but in this case, it'll be Governor Spanberger, she has until March 24 to sign, veto, or oppose any changes to the General Assembly's bills and the budget. And after that, the lawmakers come back to Richmond on April 2nd for one day, what's called a reconvene session. During that time, they can accept her proposed changes by majority vote or override any vetoes with a 2/3 vote super majority. So that's what we see taking place. That's the quick overview that I would give, or executive summary to anyone asking, what's going to happen during this session? That's what's happening in this 60-day session. Now, what are some of the issues we're going to deal with? Everyone, we've talked about this for all of last year. There are going to be some changes that are going to take place fiscally, not just in Virginia, but across the country, because of the actions of the Trump administration, called DOGE. Also, the action of the Republican-controlled Congress, called the Big Beautiful Bill. All of those actions were simply cuts. Tax cuts, cutting from social programs, cutting from programs such as healthcare, SNAP. Again, I can't wrap my mind around anyone wanting to cut, food assistance, as if being hungry is going to help you be more productive. Especially with food being the least expensive thing we grow and cultivate. So I'm not going to delve into that again. But with that being the case, now we come over to DOGE that cut not only jobs, but contracts and the like and shrunk government to their point to make it more efficient, but really made it more inefficient. So what are some of the things that we're going to have to deal with is financial issues. But before we do that, I want to give an overview of what Spanberger and the Democratic leaders said that their first priorities would be. Number one is going to be to adopt what's called Affordable Virginia Agenda. What that is a package of bills to lower health care, make housing more affordable, lower energy costs, and raise wages. Now, a lot of these bills will be directed toward the issues that are created specifically by this administration. And with that being the case, one thing that the House did, Speaker of the House, Don Scott, he actually created a commission in order to handle this, right? In order to do that, he did that in a way that really helped to further any type of actions that the General Assembly would have to undertake in order to head off any type of surprise actions. So with that, there were listening sessions held around the community, around the state. Norfolk State University, we were a host site for that. We were grateful for that and thank the speaker for that. And the members came and individuals came and testified about the impact of DOGE. And then the big, beautiful bill came down the pipe. Currently, we have a deficit because of those cuts. That's about anywhere from $900 million to $1.3 billion or more. That's the estimation, right? Of course, there will be exact numbers as we take a look at services and what this means. But also keep in mind with DOGE, over almost 300,000, 287,000 jobs were cut across the country, federal jobs. In Virginia, over 22,000 were actually cut. Over 22,000 federal jobs. Now, that doesn't mean contracts. So we have contracts attached to that. We have states, workers who were working, or workers from the state who were working in Virginia on those contracts that also have lost employment. We have veteran services that have lost employment. And then with that, we also have the cuts to healthcare because of the big, beautiful bill. Opponents call it the big, ugly bill. So therefore, without those additional dollars to the Affordable Care Act, or what's called the marketplace, and those additional dollars in the pipeline, that means that hospitals, care facilities will have to cut services. Not just services, but also who receives those services. Their charitable costs are going to increase, right? Now, if their charitable costs increase or services being cut, what does that mean for those who actually keep their health insurance? That means premiums do what? They go up. You move money out, you got to replace it. So therefore, the amount that, say, for instance, the Commonwealth of Virginia, for their HMOs, their health care coverage has to go up. So that means they're paying more to provide that. That means we as consumers have to pay more for it. That means we as co-payers, we have to pay more of our copay. More costs are coming down on the individuals because the money was pulled out the system. Now, just this week recently, the Congress passed a bill. The House passed a bill to extend health care subsidies and surprising rebuke of Republican leadership. However, we don't know what's going to happen in the Senate. So we'll see what happens in the Senate as legislators move this and see what actually happens and how the Congress may be able to save states' budgets and continue people receiving health care. So that's one of the things that they're going to have to deal with. It's if you take money out, you're going to have to do one or two things. You got to bring money in to replace it, or you cut services and costs in order to meet where your money is. It's just a simple budget, right? Numbers don't lie. We do it every day at home in our own personal budgets. If I have $100, but I have $150 worth of expenses, and I can't find another $50 every month to pay this, that means I've got to cut some of the $50 worth of expenses or the total $150 worth of expenses to get to the 100. That's the way things happen, right? Not only that, but let's take a look at some other issues that we may end up doing. According to Virginia Mercury, As the federal shifts bump up Virginia's social services workloads, a bill proposing tech upgrades could help. And this is something that's coming out. State lawmakers, as they prepare to reconvene in 2026, Virginia is also working to reduce its supplemental nutrition assistance program, SNAP error rate, or risk losing federal funding. Also, verifying recipients' eligibility, which levies more work on already strained health and social services systems. They also must contend with forthcoming changes to Medicaid eligibility. These are issues created again on the federal level that are impacting the state. Now, social services staffers around Virginia, according to Virginia Mercury, have for years grappled with outdated technology and are now preparing for extra workloads. So a new bill could spur upgrades that might help. House Bill 66 by NSU alone, Delegate Michael Fagans, would direct the Department of Medical Assistance Services and the Department of Social Services to modernize the information technology they use to provide social and medical programs to Virginians. Now, while this happens, he's also concerned. He heard last year from constituents as he served on the bipartisan committee, the one that came here and across the state, to assess how the state could respond to federal cuts. So this is something that he's working with, and he submitted this bill in order to head this off. As a matter of fact, Michael, who's a good friend of mine as well, he said the state government should invest in new IT systems to counter these changes. Prior to his service in the legislature, he worked in healthcare technology for the U.S. Air Force, and he, quote unquote, knows what it means, unquote, to have systems that are efficient. So he said the next few years are going to be about austerity, and this is how we're going to have to deal with it. So with that, he plans to implement this Bill 66. So we're going to take a look at House Bill 66 and track that and see where it goes. But then also, federal funding shifts could cloud Virginia's transportation plans for 2026. State and local officials warn that cuts could still stall bike transit and major infrastructure projects. But in addition to that, there's also a push to rein in Virginia's FOIA costs. And this is going to head back to the General Assembly. And this legislation, which has been reintroduced, Senate Bill 56 for the 2026 General Assembly session, is set to begin next week in an effort to tighten limits on how much state and local governments can charge for public records and clarify how agencies seek court relief when responding to large or complex requests. And this legislation is by Senator Danica Roem out of Manassas. And when we talk about the Virginia's Freedom of Information Act. So once again, the legislature is on. After today, in 2 days, we'll see it begin. But every week, we're going to bring you up to speed on what's happening. So join us every Sunday as we bring movers, shakers, and policymakers to you to discuss issues important to the community. Until next time, be good, be great, God bless, and yes, we'll see you next week.
Hi, I'm Carrie Washington, and you're listening to State of the Water with award-winning host Dr. Eric Claville.